Last week on the channel, we built this black tripod that's gonna serve as the base for a tripod lamp that I'm building. In this part, we're gonna build the top section of it, as well as 3D print a black PLA lamp cage of sorts. It's going to mimic the kind of black cage that you often see around Edison bulbs, but it's gonna be substantially bigger. Because I couldn't find anything like it online, I had to 3D model it myself. Also, my 3D printer isn't large enough to 3D print this in one go, so I'm going to have to go into Prusa Slicer and slice this up so I can print it in parts. Then afterwards, I'm gonna weld it together using either a soldering iron or friction welding by 3D printing a PLA tip that you put into a drill. I haven't done this before, so we're gonna see which method works best. If you haven't seen part one of this build, where we build this tripod, go ahead and check that video out. It's gonna be linked somewhere on screen. So here's the 3D model that I came up with. I'm gonna have to slice this up in Prusa, like I mentioned, but this is essentially what it's gonna look like once it's printed and welded together. As you can see, it's got a top and a bottom part as well as 9 columns or so in the middle, and I cut out holes using a bool function in Fusion 360 so that those are gonna slide into place. Okay, let's go ahead and 3D print those. And done. I wish 3D printing was actually that fast, but in reality, each one of these sections took about 2 hours to print, and there are 8 of them. And then the columns themselves actually didn't take that long to print. This was maybe 3.5 hours of printing time. I might also in the future start a website or a Discord or a Patreon or something where I put these 3D print files as well as any build plans that I come up with. So let me know if that's something you'd be interested in or something you want. But now that I've got the parts 3D printed, it's time to assemble them. So here's the dry fit assembled cage, how it's sort of going to look like. Obviously a lot of the parts right now are pretty loose, but for a dry fit test, this is actually looking a little bit better than I thought it would. So now I'm gonna sand down the parts that need a little bit of tender love and care to make them fit nicely, and then we're gonna go see about how to weld this together. Okay. So I think step 1 here is going to be soldering these bases together. Then I'm gonna have a nice solid piece in which to put the columns. I should probably wear a mask while I'm doing this. So I'm gonna turn down the soldering iron as low as it can go. You typically print PLA around 200 to 220 degrees. So I'm gonna turn this down so it doesn't absolutely roast it. I'm also going to gently screw this down onto a piece of wood just so it doesn't move while I'm soldering it together. So what I'm trying to do is basically do little circles, and as the plastic melts, try to more or less TIG weld it together. And we will see if this even works. The temperature I have the soldering iron at right now is 482 degrees Fahrenheit, which is much hotter than it would typically print PLA at. So this is what the weld looks like. I'm reasonably happy with how it looks. It feels like it's bonded. So now I'm gonna flip it over and I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. And then we're gonna do this to each one of the arms so that both the top and bottom bases are welded together. Now I have my 2 hemispheres here, so then I'm gonna go ahead and start welding these together as well. Okay, all 4 sides are welded together on the top and the bottom. I'm honestly very impressed with the structural integrity of this, as well as how flat it is. So now we're gonna move on to the top rim and weld all that together too before putting the columns in. So a quick tip that I discovered, much like actual welding, it helps a lot when you're first making the joint to put a couple of spot welds, and that will just hold everything together while you're going and make sure you have better alignment and a closer joint. And there's the top piece all welded together as well. Now I've got both the top and the bottom of the lamp cage welded together. I'm very pleased with the bond. I think for basically just holding its own weight, this will work great. The next step is to take the columns and sand them down and to fit them into the holes for assembly. I'm just gonna use some 120 grit sandpaper to grind down anything of the columns that I need to make sure they fit in. All right, that's all of the columns fit into the bottom part of the cage. All right, and there we go. That's the cage constructed. I'm very pleased with how it came out. I don't think I need to weld the actual columns to the rims. I think it's more than tight enough by itself. So now we're gonna go ahead and take this and work out how to fix the electrical up into it, as well as how to affix it to the base that we have already made. So here we have the lamp hardware itself. So we need to figure out a way to put this up through the bottom of the lamp cage. And then of course, it looks like there's a little bit of wiring that we need to do as well before this is situated. First step here is I'm going to need to drill a hole in the joint of the cage so that the wire can come up through it. So the issue I've run into is that when I 3D printed this, I didn't leave enough surface area in the middle to be able to drill out for the bolt that attaches the lamp assembly. So my solution is gonna be to cut a square of wood and then affix that to the 3D print and then drill through that. And that should give me enough of an attachment point that I can actually drill through it and get that bolt through there and then affix everything on the inside. So now I need to cut this to a perfect square. There we go. And now I'm gonna pre-drill a hole big enough for this bolt to fit through. Now I'm gonna take this bolt and feed it through that hole in the wood that I made before I affix it to the actual cage itself. Okay, so we have the tripod here, and then the idea is that this top part can clamp onto either this block of wood, or I might drill a hole through that and then it can just sit on there. So now this can screw into that. And then finally I can put this on top, and then the cap will cinch it down. Now the wires feed up through the bottom through that bolt, like so. And then we do what they're calling an underwriter's knot on the instructions. And then we're gonna attach those cables to the terminal screws. Now we try to grab the sleeve. Cool, so yeah, in theory, that should work now. All right, so the base is on, the cage is on, the bulb is on, and that thing needs to be painted. But now I do see a pretty significant problem. I'm gonna go get a light bulb and show you what it is. That's too tall. That ain't gonna fly. Look at that. It's touching it. That's gonna melt it. All right, the columns are too short. And this is why you measure twice and 3D print once, which means I need to go 3D print these again. So I will be back in however long it takes to do that. Hi, it's me from the future. Hey, buddy, next time, maybe do some measurements before you frickin' design the wrong size thing and waste 6 hours of my life. But all that to be said, it's fixed. It now fits, and it is time for the moment of truth to see if this thing actually works. So, all right, here we go. Please. Yes! Oh my gosh, it works. It's a lamp. It's kind of funny looking, but so am I. Boy, did we learn some things in this build. Oh my goodness. What do you think? Huh? It's a lamp. I think it's time to find a suitable spot in the shop for this lamp and call it a day on this project. Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this build. I know I did. I made a lot of mistakes along the way, learned a ton, really excited for future builds and getting better with every single project. Please like and comment. Let me know what you thought about this build, what I did wrong, what you found funny, if anything. It really helps out the channel a lot and I appreciate it. Obviously this lamp, it has its quirks and it's pretty janky, but I'm really proud that something that I envisioned in my head, I made a reality from nothing. And I'm looking forward to doing even more of that as time goes on. If you didn't catch the first video where we built the tripod part of this lamp, go ahead and watch that video. It has some funny moments as well. If you enjoyed this build and you want to see more like it in the future, feel free to subscribe. Again, thanks so much for watching and I'll see you guys in the next one.